Hi there, this is TJR. And yesterday, on Monday, I posted a video of myself performing Ziggy Stardust by David Bowie. And I did this, of course, in memory of his passing, which happened Sunday. Didn't learn about it myself till Monday morning. And today I thought I would just share some of my thoughts about David Bowie and about his music. And I have to admit that his passing came as such a shock. I would say even more than a shock than when I heard about Michael Jackson passing. And I was in shock. I was surprised to hear about Michael Jackson because it just came so out of left field. I just was not expecting that. To me, this felt the same way, and yet it's unusual because I had known that David Bowie had had a fight with cancer previously. That was why he was out of the limelight for a while, and then he came out last year with his last album, The Next Day, and of course came out with this new album, Black Star, which he released just a few days before he died. And so there was this feeling to me that, okay, he's okay now. He's recovered from the cancer, and it's I still have trouble believing that he's dead. It's very weird, even though of course I logically know this is what has happened. I think part of it is that Bowie always looked, as he grew older, he looked very young for his age. He obviously took very good care of himself, and there was just something about him. He was always I mean, he's been called the chameleon of rock and roll. His personality, his persona has always been reinvented. He's always been reinventing himself. I think he's just probably one of the best examples of continual reinvention within the music industry. But his passing, to me, it's still weird. It feels like it hasn't really happened yet. We're going to find out like this is just another performance art piece from him. He's going to come back suddenly. Of course, I know that's not really going to happen. Maybe I'm just wishing that it would. Musically speaking, if you put David Bowie's CDs, if you still even use CDs, put them in your iTunes. His music will come up sometimes as rock, mostly, sometimes as pop, maybe alternative. But Bowie was alternative before alternative existed. In some cases, he, while he was maybe in the rock and pop genres, he created subgenres of those genres, sometimes without us realizing it. And I mean, seriously, think about it for a moment. Fame. How would you classify fame? I mean, I guess it's pop. I guess it's rock. Maybe it's funk. Is it funk? Possibly. A lot of songs by him just completely undefinable. And it's he was one of those artists who I'll compare him to Neil Young, whom I know that on my Music Worth Buying channel, Robert and I have brought up a few times, as an artist who never went on the nostalgia bandwagon, kept challenging himself and kept trying to create new and different things. And I feel the same way about David Bowie. He kind of, with Ziggy Stardust, kind of saw the coming of punk, even though that's Ziggy Stardust, Spiders from Mars is not a punk album. But when you listen to songs like Ziggy Stardust, there is this kind of like precognitive aspect to it where it's predicting the coming of punk rock. And, he reached a point in the 80s where he became not just famous, but ultra famous. There was an alignment there where his musical sensibilities just fit right in with the 80s sensibilities, and he was hugely commercially successful. And then at the height of this, he abandoned it, and he formed Tin Machine and went against every single commercial grain there was at that point in time anyways. I remember watching some of the music videos for Tin Machine with a young woman who only knew his 80s stuff. And that was David Bowie to her. And I was thrilled to see this much more explosive, raw, harder rock David Bowie. And she, of course, was just like, oh, I don't like this. I like the more, she liked the 80s pop David Bowie, you know, the Let's Dance, that David Bowie. And it's a funny thing. At the time, I didn't realize it, but with Tin Machine, David Bowie was already, once again, being precognitive and predicting the coming of the grunge movement, of Nirvana, and the bands that would follow in that wake during the 90s. Tin Machine, to me, was kind of pre-grunge before grunge. He was predicting the coming of that. You know, it's funny. I really don't think too much. When I think about music, I really don't think too much about fashion, even though fashion has always played a huge hand in rock and roll. How rock and pop musician entertainers dress and how they present themselves with their personas. I've never thought too much about it. But with David Bowie, I remember the first time I ever saw him. I was just a kid. And you have to understand, I was raised in this extremely conservative background. I was only allowed to watch certain things and was not allowed to go see a lot of different types of movies. And the first time I think I saw David Bowie, I believe it was probably just some news footage. And I remember seeing this footage of him, you know, with the ultra red dyed hair and the Ziggy Stardust, you know, spaceman outfit, and just being kind of shocked, you know, and just kind of like almost outraged, like, you know, what is this? Because this just defied all sensibilities once again. I don't mean shocked in a good way. I mean kind of maybe even in a bad way. Once again, consider my upbringing at the time. I remember feeling the same way when I saw Kiss with their makeup on. I just thought, what are they? Who do they think they are? They can't be very good if they have to dress like that. And I remember just feeling that same kind of frightened outrage when you see something that shocks you like that. Kind of funny for me to actually think that I once felt that way. But I was just a kid. In today's society, we are so much more accepting of things that we weren't accepting of when I was growing up. And I'm grateful for that. In the 70s, I remember everybody was just trying very hard to fit in. And David Bowie would just come out here with this wild appearance, wild hair, wild outfit. And I know a lot of rock stars in the 70s were doing this, but he was doing it in a way that just really kind of said, I don't care if I don't fit in, and I do not care what you think about it. And there was very much a kind of just, I dare you, I double dare you kind of attitude about it. During the 70s, it was a very homophobic time. And anything different just got labeled. And I remember even after I became a rock and roll music fan and was following rock and roll music and was listening to David Bowie along with a whole bunch of other artists, I remember other kids my own age would say, oh man, he's gay, because of the way he looked. That was it, just because of the way he looked. And yet these same people who were saying this still liked his music. And this was kind of the beginning of mainstream society meeting halfway with what they were afraid of, you know, what they felt shocked and outraged by, you know, kind of like mainstream society, you know, I don't like this aspect about you. It frightens me. It's weird. It's different, but I like your music. So I'm going to accept that part of you. And, you know, and I think there were other artists who did that too as well, like, you know, Elton John as well, and some others that maybe I'll talk about another time. But, you know, I think that the way he presented himself with fashion, especially during the 70s, he did a lot to kind of move mainstream society into accepting what was considered different or unusual or strange or weird. And there's so much of that we thought was just unacceptable back then that we accept now, you know? Yeah. All right. So yeah, so your hair is different. So you've got tattoos all over your body. So, you know, you've got these piercings. So what? You know? You know, We're all the same inside, aren't we? And like I said, very different from the world I grew up in as a kid. And so, yeah, when you think of David Bowie, it's impossible to not think of how he used fashion. And of course, that also deals with how he dealt with performance art too. You know, the way he would present himself on stage and the types of shows he would do. And it's a shame we're never going to get to see those shows anymore. And once again, a musician, songwriter who really kept challenging himself to create new and interesting things, never fell back on his laurels, and never ever went the nostalgia route. I don't know if all his albums continually sold as well as, I'm sure a lot of them didn't sell as well as they did in the 80s when he hit that kind of that commercial peak. I don't know if all of his albums, you know, how they did financially, but he just kept going. And thankfully, you know, the label, you know, stood with him, you know, and let him keep making albums. I have not yet listened to Black Star. I've listened to it, but not enough to comment on it yet. And I know that when The Next Day came out, I did do a track-by-track review on Music Worth Buying, my other channel. I don't know if that was before we actually had to change channels, change our URL. If it was, then I might just repost that to Music Worth Buying because it was a track-for-track review. But as I think about it, it just feels like it can't be real. It can't be real that he's gone. I know that when an artist like B.B. King passed away, it was not unexpected. We knew it was coming. Same thing like with Johnny Cash and James Brown. My feeling was, okay, yes, it's sad that they're gone, but they led full lives. They gave us a huge catalog of music, and they did what they set out to do. And with David Bowie, I feel like, no, it's too soon. I mean, he was 69, and but it feels like he was still so much younger, like he still should have had so much more time, and like he still should have done so much more. It just feels like, no, it's too soon. He got taken from us too early. You know, like when John Lennon, you know, was murdered, he was only 40. And that was just way too soon, way, way too soon. To this day, I will never, ever be able to wrap my head around that either, as real as it is. But David Bowie, even at 69, I feel like he was too young, and I feel like there's still so much more we should have gotten, and I'm sorry we're not going to have it. And you know, and I probably sound selfish saying this, of course, but I just feel like it's just not possible, you know, but unfortunately it is. And Black Star is the last album we're going to get. And anyways, though, my thoughts, of course, go out to the family. Thoughts and prayers go out to the family. And you know, let's all listen to the music and explore it, relive it, listen to the albums you know and love, and if there were albums that you didn't check out, and there are some in his catalog which I have to say I've never heard, you know, it's definitely go out and explore those too. And it's funny, right before I filmed this, or rather I should say a couple days before he had passed on, I had thought to myself, I need to watch The Man Who Fell from Earth again. And I thought about buying the Criterion Collection edition of it. And I need to watch that film again. A lot of people think of Labyrinth when they think of him, but I always think of The Man Who Fell to Earth. But let's go out and explore those albums, you know, and re-listen to the ones that we grew up with and the ones that we love as well. And so anyways, though, I'm just sorry he's, like, of course, like everybody, I'm sorry he's gone. And there was some incredibly innovative music that he created. And it's a shame that we're not going to get any more innovation from one of the real rock and roll innovators. And anyways, though, those are my thoughts. And please feel free to share yours here. And I look forward to reading your comments. And so it just goes to show life can suddenly be short, and you never know when it's going to go away. So make the most of every moment of every day in any way possible. And that includes the music you experience. Make the most of that too. And anyways, hope this didn't ramble on too long. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.